Hello everyone, this is NYCZ31. As you can tell, I have purchased a motorcycle. Well, this is actually my second motorcycle. After passing the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course, I bought a Rebel. I used Rebel to kind of throw around and figure out what the hell I was doing. And after a couple of months, I decided I needed to get something bigger. This is the 2017 Suzuki V-Strom 650. And when I saw this bike at the dealership, I was fascinated by it, and I decided to buy it. Now, not only did I buy a new bike as a beginner, I also bought a rather tall, and for a beginner, a large bike. So was that foolish? Yeah, probably. But I'm sure there are a lot of people out there beginning who see this bike and, like me, are fascinated by it and are thinking about whether this is a good bike for a beginner. And again, as a beginner, I will try to give my perspective on what it's like with this bike as a beginner. The first thing to consider is that the bike has a 645cc V-twin engine. So the engine, again, for a beginner, this engine is plenty powerful. It will get you going. Being a V-twin, the power delivery is very linear and very predictable. So you will be able to learn how to handle a large engine without it getting away from you. So I think that's one great thing about this motorcycle, that it has plenty of power, and it allows you to get a chance of what it's like to handle a relatively large engine without dealing with like a sport bike, which might have a power delivery that's more towards the top end. With this bike, you're getting the power right in the lower end with plenty of grunt. So it'll help you get going and get to a speed where you'll feel nice and stable. Now the bike itself is, again, for a beginner, this bike is large and intimidating. Although technically it is a middleweight bike. It's about 480 pounds wet. Now, one thing I did for the first few hundred miles is I didn't fill the tank all the way. This tank does hold about 5 gallons. And when full, it does make the bike rather top heavy. So what I would do is ride for the most part with a half-empty tank, which helped keep the center of gravity relatively low on this bike. But again, that's something to consider. But I'm at the point now where I'm plenty comfortable, riding with a full tank and everything. So that's just something to consider. Now I'm 5'9" with 30-inch inseam. Sitting on the bike, I'm basically on the balls of my feet. Now, as a beginner, it can be rather unnerving to sit on a bike that you cannot flat foot. So, for the first few go-arounds with this bike, you will have to be very careful when coming to a stop to make sure that you're nice and straight, and then you're ready to put your foot down. Now, what I typically do is I leave my right foot on the peg, covering the rear brake, and then I am able to flat foot my left foot onto the ground. Another thing you could do is, if you're on some well-worn roads that have ruts, just bring your bike into the rut, and then as you come to a stop, you should be able to get both feet planted down quite nicely. But again, after a few miles on this bike, I feel perfectly comfortable coming to a stop and all that stuff, even not being able to flat foot the bike. So that is a little fear that you will get over after some time on the bike. So that's something that you can't, getting your feet up on the bike, it's easy once it gets going. Again, the V-twin offers very linear power delivery, so everything's very predictable with this bike. In terms of handling, bike handles very predictably. It won't do anything too crazy. The slow speed maneuvers will be a little tricky at first, again, because of the size of the bike, and you're still learning basically how to get around without falling down. But after some time, again, you will learn how to use the throttle to keep the bike from falling down, and you will be fine. In terms of what I have done to this bike, I tried to add a couple of things just to help keep myself safe in case I do go down. Now, I have actually dropped this bike once, but when I dropped the bike, it was actually right here in front of my garage, and I wasn't fully concentrating on what I was doing when I was pushing the bike into the garage, and the bike actually fell on me. You can imagine 480 pounds of bike falling on you, but I was actually fine, thank goodness. I still had all my stuff on, so it protected me. And with a couple of good grunts, I was able to get the bike off me and back on two wheels. So, you know, I actually managed to avoid damaging the bike because it fell on me. So, but again, since you are seated pretty high up, if the bike goes down, it is a long way down. So, but if you're strong, if you have a strong lower body, strong legs, you will probably be able to keep the bike up. But again, it's a little tricky. What I've done to the bike, I added some Givy crash bars, you know, just to protect the bike if I should go down in a more serious crash. I added some spool sliders to the swing arm. That's just to help me lift the bike. As you can see, I'm cleaning the chain right now. So those spool sliders are pretty handy if you want to think about maintaining the bike yourself. And that's one thing about this bike. Everything's very accessible. So if you're thinking about getting a bike where you can do most of the work yourself, this is a great option. The other thing here I've added on the bottom is a skid plate. Now, the XT 650 includes a skid plate, but I didn't get the XT. So this skid plate is from Weld 86. Just Google Weld 86 skid plate, and you will get the website to order this skid plate. It's about $150, and it does the job of protecting the exhaust and the engine from anything that the front wheel should kick up. So it's a great little piece. Great little piece to add to your bike. Now, of course, there's plenty of other options for skid plates, but I just wanted something simple, so I went with this. I've added some heat-resistant sound deadening material just to prevent that skid plate from reflecting sounds of the engine back up at me. But with earplugs in, you know, you won't really catch that. So, and again, I'm sure you've already seen reviews of the bike. Ergonomics are excellent on this bike. You are sitting upright. And I would say this bike is very much like a SUV in terms of you are sitting up high, your view will be above almost every other vehicle on the road. Even mid-size SUVs like Ford Explorers, you will be able to see over them. So that's one nice thing about the bike, is that the visibility is excellent in traffic, and you will be able to see ahead and prepare yourself. So in traffic, getting around town, this bike is absolutely excellent. And yeah, if you have any other questions, again, you're a beginner, you're a novice rider, and and you're wondering if the V-Strom 650 is good for you, I would say, you know, as long as you're of the right height, as long as you've got a strong lower body to keep the bike up when you get a little shaky, and I would say you can't go wrong with it. And if you're not, you know, if you're a little shaky because you can't flat foot it, I would say, you know, it will be scary for the first few miles, but after that, you won't have any issues. You will adapt. You will adapt your riding behavior to keep yourself safe on this motorcycle. And with the 650, you will be able to ride it for a while. You know, you will grow into this bike. This bike is a keeper in my case, and I think that covers it. All right, just go ahead and comment if you have any other questions. All right, guys, take care, ride safe.